Brock Purdy, you have my attention.
Yeah, it does. Purdy mania.
Brock in this game, let me get back to it. Brock goes 16 of 21 for 185 and 2 touchdowns in a game where the Niners destroy the Bucs 35-7. Where do you even want to start with this?
Well, I originally, when Debo got hurt, I was going to say that the 49ers are officially the Black Knight and Monty Python. It's just a flesh wound. They just keep coming. They're just going to gnaw you off. I don't know, man. Like he makes a couple of throws that this is the Brock Purdy stat that I think just perfectly encapsulates the difference of Brock Purdy and Jimmy G, because there's so many similarities as far as where they're attacking, what plays they're calling, and everything. Is Jimmy G scrambled twice this entire season. Brock Purdy's already scrambled 3 times this entire season. That is then and there. The difference in play style, 60% of Purdy's throws are outside the pocket. That's double of Jimmy G's rate of 7.8%. So that's a little bit of the difference with this play style. But man, he knows how to operate it, man. Everything's calm. They have no cadence stuff. He's making all the checks and kills. They're doing all the motion stuff. They haven't dumbed down anything for this offense, and the run game looks awesome. And yeah, Purdy mania. It was fun to watch. He makes a couple throws that are really fun.
I don't know, man.
I know. I know. They were running him off the court like that.
I mean, some of it is perfectly within structure and within what they're trying to accomplish offensively. Right? In the opening drive, they had a 3rd and 7. It was a 1-by-3 with Kittle on the right side, and he hits a little in-breaker to Kittle. When they get 5 in their pattern, the quarterback, I'm not saying is inconsequential, but there's a lot you have to worry about if you're a defense. So today I was curious about it because watching that play, McCaffrey gets out into the flat to the same side that Kittle is on. And so there's just so many threats, especially when Debo is healthy, which we can talk about. In this game, when the Niners had 5 out in the pattern, Brock Purdy was 12 of 14 for 142 yards. I mean, just very, very hard to stop. It kind of goes without saying. So you have that example with Kittle. The McCaffrey touchdown is just wonky Kyle Shanahan shit. McCaffrey is at number 1. George Kittle is in the backfield.
Yep.
And so the Bucs on that play, they were in one of their wonky Todd Bowles type things. The defensive tackles were lined up as off-ball linebackers on that play, or just big guys in general, guys with numbers in the 90s. One comes scot-free on a blitz, and it's a good thing Kittle is there, because Kittle has to hit an unblocked 300-pound blitzer to give Purdy time to hit McCaffrey on that play. McCaffrey's open, burns Logan Ryan. It's a touchdown. Again, in structure. But there were a couple plays in this game. There's one where he evades pressure and finds Kittle for a chunk in the first quarter. There was that one play where he did the swim move with a defensive tackle and then found Debo Samuel out of structure.
Between 3 guys.
In this game, he was 7 of 8 for 109 when pressured. That type of stuff is probably going to come back to earth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very difficult to rely on that stuff, play in and play out over the course of a game. He had a bad interception in this game that was called back for, I believe, a defensive holding that was completely unrelated to the interception that he threw. So we'll see what happens over a long stretch of time, but it's definitely a good first entry into how good can the Niners be and how far can they go with Brock Purdy as their quarterback.
If he can do all the in-structure stuff just well enough, they have so much juice on this offense.
Yeah.
It's like these guys are just rolling. The Debo touchdown had the little design stuff. CMC's the lone receiver, and they motion Ayuk and clear out the entire side. So like the run game is still a Shanahan run game, doing some really fun stuff.
McCaffrey 14 carries for 119 today.
They ran more times than they passed, and that's because they can do that. That's where that being in 21 personnel, this is the perfect defense to go against too. I always talk about with the Bulls defense, you want to get them to base, and they're making them be uncomfortable because Bulls wants to get to his pressure stuff out of sub. But just like some of these runs, man, like they had like a split zone with juice check in motion and then Kittle sliding across. So split zone.
They did that twice.
Yeah. It's like a double lead.
Yeah.
It's
I didn't know how to characterize it in my notes. So I was wondering what you would talk about, how you would say it.
Jet out split zone. So you jet with the kick out block with the split zone. That's how I would call it. Like it turns basically into a counter play. Like that's kind of how it ends.
But they ran it out of pistol. So there was no counter step. It looks really weird in practice. Yep. And it just one of those things where there are 4 or 5 plays in this game. Only the Niners are going to run. Only the Niners are going to try.
And we talk about like plays like duo or like I talk about it all the time, but like receiver blocking and then how they have to fit up. And you watch this Bucks offense, it's Chris Godwin. You watch Packers, with Lazard, and these guys are fitting up on safety, CD Lamb. And then you watch what the Jets do this a little bit too, Shanahan type offenses. Watch how many times the 49ers ask their receivers to pin a D end so they can get outside to the weak side.
And it was Ayuk a bunch today. This guy's a
Ayuk,
first-round pick who's super skilled.
And that's not the guy that you would expect to do that. Oh, okay. No. It's not Jennings.
He's not a dirty work guy.
No, he's not. If Jennings was in there, it's like, oh, okay, that makes a ton of sense. That's their dirty work guy. But the fact that they're having their star yak guy and he's setting picks on DNs and getting plays out in space, that's how you get Trent Williams pulling. And that's just an awesome counter. This is what the Falcons do really well. They'll hit this play as well. But they have guys, insert name here, doing it. Like they have Drake London doing it a couple times, but they have other guys doing it. So that's what's really cool. You remember that this is a Shanahan run game. But the other thing was Brock Purdy didn't hit the Nick Mullins first start numbers. Nick Mullins in his first start, 16 of 22, 262, 3 touchdowns against the Raiders. So didn't hit Mullins numbers.
I'm glad you brought this up. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to bring context to this before we move on. Brock Purdy, I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is important to the level of success we've seen from the Niners passing game over the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, there are people online talking to me about this today, and I wanted to bring it up. I don't think that this is a quarterback-free offense. I don't think you can just drop in anybody you want to and have the Niners put forth the same sort of success they've had with Jimmy Garoppolo. That would be an insane thing to think. Jimmy Garoppolo has been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league with Kyle Shanahan. But how much better they make the quarterbacks that you drop in here. The fact that Nick Mullins is 33rd in EPA per dropback among pretty much all quarterbacks with 100 attempts over the last 3 or 4 years. And he's bounced around between practice squads or whatever. Yep. He was at least average NFL quarterback within this offense. And I think that Brock Purdy can be better than Nick Mullins was. And I also think that this is the best set of weapons the 49ers have ever had.
Yes.
The Niners offense has never had this amount of threats in the passing game. Think about that McCaffrey touchdown. That McCaffrey touchdown is on the table because it's Christian McCaffrey. And what they can do with those 5 guys out in the route changes because Christian McCaffrey is there. And I do think that the set of weapons they now have is even more prone to lift up their quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo was putting together the best statistical season, according to advanced numbers, that he had ever had under Kyle Shanahan this year. So I think it's reasonable to conclude that Brock Purdy can be the best other quarterback that we have ever seen within this Niners ecosystem since Kyle Shanahan got there. Does that change with Deebo Samuel missing time? Perhaps, but it's a high ankle sprain. They have pretty much already won the division. Our Austin Mock says they have a 94% chance to win the NFC West after that Seahawks loss today. So if Deebo can get back by the playoffs and they're full strength or something close to full strength with all of those weapons, I still think that they're dangerous even with Brock Purdy, just because of how much faith I have in the pass catchers and how much faith I have in the guy pulling the trigger.
Absolutely.
And by that I mean Kyle Shanahan, not the quarterback.
Yeah, no, yes, the puppet master. No, that's the thing. This defense is insane. And it's not
that goes without saying. Yes.
And it's not like you watch this defense and you go, oh, well, you can run on them. So if you control the clock and, it's like, no, the defense could shred anybody, especially if you have a poor O-line. So so you take that worry out. And then Purdy does actually, the O-line's not great, but you still have a Shanahan run game. They don't tap into the play action as much as they haven't before. Like that's the other thing. There's a little uptick with Purdy. I'm trying to find this right now, but there's a little uptick with Purdy. But if they look right here, this was the lowest percentage that Jimmy G has used play action was this season. So if it's just true media stats, 29% of his early down plays were play action. So usually it's
where does that rank in the league?
That's about league average. About league average, a little bit above. But usually his career percentage, including this year, is 37%. So there's a downtick. Purdy so far has only used about 29% play action. they're not just going easy button, easy button, easy button, easy button for them. They're still doing the drop back stuff that this 49ers offense has tweaked into, and they still
I
have
think
that
the easy
room.
button stuff is the 5 guys out in the route
That's
stuff.
what I mean.
That's
but
the
that's
easy
the
button
hard
stuff within
You
this
know what's
offense.
the hardest shit to defend on defense is that when all 5 guys are valid weapons, that is impossible to defend. It's a motion offense, except in football. Like, that's the thing. Play action. The downside of play action is sometimes you only get 2 guys out in routes and plus the check down. So we'll call it 2.5 guys, or it's a half field read. 5 guys with empty makes every part of the offense available, or the field available for the offense to attack. That is so much harder. That's why I talk about, and why I even brought up that hurts Mahomes, the true dropback percentage. That's why a true dropback offense that you can do well is the hardest thing, because you always have to defend every area. You can't just go, well, we'll just run cover 2 over here. We'll cloud this side. They can't throw it over there. That's why it's so tough. But the fact that the 49ers can tap into that now is really, really scary.
And that's why I think that this is the best situation this offense has been in, independent of who the quarterback is. And I think that the ceiling is obviously higher with Jimmy Garoppolo, right. But I also think the expectation should be higher with whoever you drop in there. If it happens to be Brock Purdy, it's Brock Purdy. Yeah. Yep. And it goes beyond floor, though.
It's right. I'm trying to think of a good way to put it, because
it's the multiplier. The multiplier is higher than it has ever been within the Niners offense, right? So if you're looking at that's
plays
what
are gooder.
And it's the multiplier you put on the quarterback. That's what this is. It's not that you get the same level of results no matter who the quarterback is. It's that if you put Jimmy Garoppolo in the Shanahan offense compared to anything else, he's 1.7 times better than he would be with any other play caller. So Brock Purdy within this offense is 1.7 times better than he's going to be. And maybe that number was 1.3 in a world where Brandon Ayuk wasn't like a star level player. They didn't have Christian McCaffrey, all of these other considerations that weren't in place over the last few years. That's how I feel about it. It's like how in high school football, if you're a private school in Illinois, this is how it is at least. Yeah, and if you're a private school, you have a multiplier for your student body in order to like determine what division that you're in. So that's kind of what it feels like now, is that they have a multiplier for the Niners offense because of Kyle Shanahan.
That's funny. Yeah, it's like an RPG. They got the Shanahan shield. That like increases everything. But I love that. You go with the Illinois high school football, and I went with like a Zelda reference or something like that.
Sounds right. That's where we're both at.
Right.
So the Debo injury, definitely something to take into consideration here, because if hopefully this is just a 3 or 4 weeks thing. I hope they shut him down. If this is really, if they have these 94%, just shut him down, because with these high ankles, that's the biggest concern, is that they linger and he's a shell of himself. Like that's the last thing that we want. So hopefully he can get back healthy and we can see what these guys do. The last thing I wanted to say, the Ayuk touchdown, I can't remember if it was on the same drive, but it was in the same half. They hit a deep curl to him earlier on that, I believe, the same drive. And then the touchdown is he fakes the deep curl and then runs the double move for a touchdown. It's like, I fucking love Kyle Shanahan.
Dude,
just
it's all linked. There's a sluggo, like they're running goes and sluggos on the outside. They're just,
because that's what Logan Ryan thought it was going to be, a sluggo. He sat there playing, he thought it was going to be a slant. Like he sat there playing the inbreaker, knew it was coming, and instead it's like
heavy inside.
It was almost like a fake sluggo. He like barely moved inside before he ran the go, and that's all he had to do.
It was just selling the stutter step. And it was like that's all they needed.